Hey, so what's on the front burner for today? Sun's out. I just thought I'd share some stuff because over the last few days since I've been out working on this on the rock here and picking up some really powerful tones, if you will, frequencies, a little tingly stuff, right? And because there's always so much that's happening uh, simultaneously on what we experience. It's like being aware of something that we know by virtue of that experience that is very dear to our heart and soul and the essence of our spirit, right? And then and then once that's been acknowledged as an experience, you keep going on to other experiences, right? So when do we return back, for example, to experience in our own heart and soul the gratitude that we have because of the gift that is represented by what we are in energy, which is our spiritual energy, the essence of our spirit, or the nature of our spiritual energy, and our soul consciousness that is, running, operating as an imprint. Consciousness is imprinted into the math, which is the template, right? In a manifestation field of mathematical numbers as letters, symbols, character maps, computer language, if you will, mathematical language of communication, which represents a network communicating to everybody else that is communicating with each other through the networks, which is based on the language, which is the math language of these particular different templates that are operating their avatars, if you will, or their auric energy field. And so I've been watching different videos that the Emerald. There's a few channels. One of them is the Emerald Covenant. Another one is Asha Dion, an Indigo, who has been presenting a lot of Guardian materials, and I forget the name of the other channel. Something. PSONN, Son of Light, something like that. There's a number of them now that are putting up a lot of Guardian materials that go into some pretty in-depth mechanics, celestial mechanics of the math and physics, if you will. Really what is codes, mathematical codes, fire letters that ignite, fire and ice, traction, torque speed differential, displacement in water worlds. And I was listening to her just a few minutes ago in a presentation that she was on an island in Greece, and she began mentioning a few things that were very dear to my heart, and so I suppose that's what sort of prompted me to do this, to put it into the reality stream on this camera here. And that dealt with really a couple things that I've been experiencing, particularly over the last couple of days, when it comes to two subjects that are probably in my lifebook experiences since I was a little child, deals with what it's like to experience being innocent, or if you will, when you think about how that word is applied to an experience that we have. And now we're back to perception, and I don't want to get into biased perception, but we know what vibration perception is, which means the perception upon which what we're seeing, if you will, visually, the vibration that we're experiencing, or the amount of voltage that we're experiencing at the moment, which is the completion of a magnetic circuit, that we're experiencing something in our mirror. So like when I'm out in nature, I love to be in nature because I'm experiencing the music that's being played by plants, grass, everything that's there, the trees, everything that's there, the field, the musical math, the music that you're experiencing. So my antenna is tuned into that, to all the frequencies actually that we have the ability to tune into in an avatar as an antenna, right? Particularly when you've gone cosmic, right? That's why, I'm hearing the hissing sound right now. Someone could be standing right next to me, and I would say to them, are, are you hearing a loud hissing sound like your mind is in the inside of an air compressor? Are you experiencing that? And they'd go, no, I'm not experiencing that. I'm not hearing any hissing sound, right? So I'm in an echosphere. I'm experiencing the echosphere. I'm hearing the hissing sound like I'm an air compressor. His. And it varies throughout the course of the day and the night. And there's times in which it's just like, man, turn this radio set off. Because you're getting all the traffic that's being routed through hub servers, and that's when you get into hub server networks, Trinity Network, the Trinity Hub Server Network, 3. But I suppose the deepest subject that I know, because she mentioned something about other races that are at war with each other, if you will, and we're humans are caught sort of in the crossfire. So she covered that in this particular video that she did on the workshop, Freedom Teachings workshops. I think it was number 6 out of 7, the one that I just got done watching, or part of it anyway. About and I've shared this with everyone. When you're, because I couldn't figure this out as a child. If I'm experiencing eternal unconditional love through my heart, which means that if you're in my presence, that's the energy that you're going to experience being in the presence of my energy. So therefore, love does no harm. And if you're experiencing what love is and you're doing no harm, that's the innocent side of things. You're harmless. See? And so if you're harmless, the word innocent, if you will, if you applied it to the way that we define what it means in the lexicon of the English language about a justice system, and using the word judgment, right? You're being judged. Like when you go before a judge, you're going to be judged. Well, in order for, in their court system, for example, to be brought before some authority figure or an administrative process, right? An administrative authority, which means that when you look at all the rules, which are rule-based functions, now we're back into artificial intelligence and how computers talk to one another, right? Based on the language of DNA and the language of computers, which is the language of programming, language of music, and notes, right? The tones, 177.655, key the mic. Hey, now I can pick you up. Where you at? And you can hear the sound, right? That stuff. Antennas, the waves, shortwave radio, UHF, ultra high frequency, low frequency, ultra low frequency, all the frequencies, right? So imagine you have access to all the key codes that unlock all the locks, if you will, between every density and every dimension, and being able to tune in to pick those up. And that would be guardian level antennas, because it means that you're like a protectorate, right? Protecting the all creation, because you're gifting love to all creation at a high rate of acceleration, which is your consciousness, your soul consciousness. In my case, an oversoul consciousness that is experiencing what my antenna picks up as a result of what it is that I, if you will, just like I mentioned before, when I was a child growing up, wanting to protect everything so that we are all living in a state of love, peace, harmony, rhythm, and balance. So the spheres, all the spheres, right? The X inside the cross inside the sphere is in perfect balance with 4 lines, the intersection, a 4-way intersection of a tetrahedron, right? So she mentioned a couple words that I thought was important, and one of those was called judgment. And so now we're back to the context in which we mean what a judgment is. So, for example, if I walked into a hotel and there's 50 or 60 people that are all around there, and my antenna is picking up on all those frequencies, okay? So if I'm experiencing something that is less than what I was experiencing before I walked into that hotel, well, wow, I'm experiencing high frequency energy and I'm lit up like an 8-day clock, right? And then all of a sudden I come into that and all of a sudden there's a drop in bandwidth. Now I'm experiencing what they're experiencing based on the frequency and the vibration of those beings that are in that hotel. So on the one hand, I would say, well, who wants to experience that lower frequency energy? Because before I walked into that hotel, I was experiencing higher bandwidth, which is higher vibration, perception, frequency, that you're tuned into all the frequencies in the grid, in a network, multiple networks actually, because you're connected to the whole template, the universal and galactic template, if you will, as a hub server. See, so that's what happens when you're an oversoul. You have access to the hubs, like a spoke wheel, right? When you see a galaxy, it spins, right? Just like water down a toilet does. And so when you're experiencing being a garden, because you can't stand to experience anything, suffer a loss of one electron, actually, because my antenna is actually that sensitive. So when I come in and I make what's called a map read, okay, that's not a judgment. Not in the sense that it's like, oh, you're a bad guy because I'm experiencing something that's less than what I am. It means I simply become aware of that. My state of awareness is now aware that my consciousness has dropped, okay? Because now I'm experiencing the consciousness levels of the beings that are in that hotel, which means the bands that they're running based on their DNA template that they're running with their consciousness. That's all it is, right? So you'd understand from a guardian perspective, you're now bringing in what? Higher vibration, higher frequencies. Now their antenna is going to pick that up because they're picking that up from me. So I've talked this before. We're all antennas. And that's what I've talked about before, antenna wars, frequency wars, which are genetic wars, which are energy wars between races that are at war with the one, the law of one. Right? So they're in war, they're at war using their template, okay, in their mirror. So they're at war what's in their mirror by being able to experience what is represented by another template, another language, another mathematical language that is represented by their particular DNA, right? And then what would be what's known as their core consciousness identity. How much energy are they using in order to imprint and run the avatar that they're in, say, in that lobby of that hotel? So now my antenna is picking up on those frequencies. And that becomes a map read of the consciousness, right? That's running that equipment, that vehicle, that communication platform. So they're running a radio set. Okay, so there's my radio set, their radio set. So when you're in a hotel lobby, you're experiencing all the antennas that are being run through that particular template, right? So now you're bringing in higher energy. Now they're experiencing what you are. Now they can make the translation by the frequency and the vibration that their radio set is picking up. Remember, going back to childhood, hey, they're on a different wavelength. So you're able to know that they're not experiencing the wavelength that we can operate at, because that's called frequency modulation. You're modulating, now we're back to the switch on the radio, like a Cobra, gain of function, right? Remember, Fauci talked about gain of function. Well, their gain of function was in the other direction, right? Which was to do what? Instead of being high band, slow the bioplasmin down, which is your immune system, right? So now you become an acid battery. So you know what happens when you become an acid battery, right? That's like a swamp. That's a wastewater treatment plant that, and now you get into the basic metabolic rate and the telomeres and the rate at which you're getting rid of waste product as a result of running a radio set, a supercomputer. And so how the two sort of interrelate between what it means to make a judgment of anything, actually, in the way that judgment is defined as perception, how we perceive it, or if you will, the perception of power, what the perception that we have of what power is. Mine is not the same as theirs. Okay. So the perception of power that I have is by being in service mode, which is how can I help you, right? Love and service to others. For what purpose? Bring peace, right? Ultimately, that's what it is. You know, when you're experiencing one, being what love is that goes on forever, gifting energy, and you're experiencing the innocence that is represented by that, because love does no harm, then when you're experiencing what love is, which means you're not doing any harm to yourself nor to others by virtue of the way in which we use our energy to broadcast booming scalar waves in order to heal a fallen system, right? And that allows us to hold the higher consciousness field from which we're all connected in our networks through the hub servers in which we're all communicating with each other, right? Yeah, just like I shared one time before when I went to work for a company called Wastetrend down at the Idaho National Engineering Laboratory. Okay, so I was there. It's just like the folks that are in this house. Okay, I was going to work at a place where the individuals that were there in that building are people that you may not normally associate with. In other words, they're not your family, they're not your close friends, they're not somebody you go to hang out with when you're after work or after school. In other words, folks that you love to hang out with because you're on the same wavelength. You know, waveform entanglement. Hey, we're in harmony. Our waves, our radio sets are tuned into each other. Now we're experiencing a state of peace, a state of balance, and a state of rhythm. The waves are in rhythm. The music is in rhythm. So we're tuned in, baby. Yeah, cool. What do you want to go do? Let's go have some fun. So in other words, your templates are able, right, to resonate in a field in which your waves are in harmony together. Right? So when you're in harmony together, and you're in a state of peace together, you can go have some fun because now you're not needing to use your energy to protect yourself against something else that's draining your energy. Right? So that's pretty straightforward on that side of it. So you make adjustments. You make adjustments on your frequency modulation. Right? Just like the other day when somebody was really angry and screaming and yelling at his girlfriend. Right? Have no idea what it was over, but who wants to experience that? Because you realize what that does to your central nervous system, which is your endocrine system, right? Which means everything that is consciousness within your entire auric energy field, which is your template, is now experiencing the anger that gentleman was experiencing, right? And so it's when you get down to the level at which when I communicate to every molecule and every living cell that's in my body to heal myself, which I've had to do my entire life, actually, I have a communication relationship with all the elementals, all the molecules, everything that's alive and living in consciousness, because they all know what it is that I am in spirit, the essence of my spirit with my soul that is running the equipment, and they are very aware of why it is I use my energy the way that I do for the jobs that we do while we're here. Right? Yeah. Particularly on behalf of Mama. You know, I've gone through this exercise of experiencing it with her, of what it's like to experience a nuclear bomb going off, like in 1945, or what they did in Vietnam with Agent Orange, defoliated, right? What they did to the Vietnamese people there with all that stuff, right? All the B-52 bombers that were dropping 2,000, 3,000 pound bombs, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Bam, 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 bam. So you can imagine the shock waves from not just one of those, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, particularly during when, what's his name? Richard Nixon, who's, on the same bloodline family side, when they were launching, what was it called? Thunder. And they were hammering North Vietnam with B-52s. So imagine that you're experiencing that. Your energy is in that field. So you can imagine what it was like for her to experience that. Okay? So I translate this no different than if you're a child and you've grown up to become an adult and then you decide to come over and visit your mother's house, Like you've left planet and you've gone off to another galaxy and you haven't been to planet Earth for 5,000 years, and you come back to be with your mother, right? You're not going to come back into your mother's house and start destroying everything, right? Poisoning the water, poisoning the air, and everything else, are you? You're not going to do that to your mother, are you? You know, the mother that gave birth to you, are you going to do that? You're going to do that to your own home world from whence you came, right? So that's how I perceive it, you know, as being like an ambassador, which means that you're welcome. And that would be the same wherever we go, right? Which is to honor out of love and respect for other races that exist within the all creation, because the energy that we bring in there is what love is, right? So we're naturally in a state of doing no harm. We're not seeking to drain anybody else's energy. We're seeking to bring energy in here where it's been lost as a result of what? Genetic mutations, the mutagenic, teratogenic effects, as a result of grids that don't work, that allow for others to be able to experience what we are, which is what love is, that love them, okay? And that allows them to be able to experience the origin, the point of origin, right? The crystal spiral. And so that's what makes it so hard, is having to acknowledge the fact that they do not experience that. Right? And so I know what it's like. I've experienced it a gazillion different times. What it's like to feel within your own heart, what is really the purity of the light, which is the purity of the consciousness, which is the purity of the liquid living light and spirit. The fire that you have, which is being alive. And maintaining, if you will, the purity. So the purity is the innocence, because you're not committing you're not using your energy to hurt anybody. So that means you're innocent of having committed any crimes against yourself, actually, by virtue of what we do to harm others. You know, remember the golden rule: what I do to you, I do to me. Or, you know, if you want to rock somebody else's water worlds, you know, then they're going to experience that negative reaction as a result of their boat being rocked. Now they're not in a state of peace, right? So if they're not experiencing a state of peace, then it's like, why are you wanting to rock my boat? I haven't done anything to you, right? So in other words, we don't go around giving other races reasons to want to do something back to us that's going to hurt us, because that's not who we are. We're creator beings, co-creators, manifestors of real worlds, which means they're born out of the love that we are, that they are born out of. They become what that is. In other words, love is the energy that we use to manifest them with, because that's the energy that we are in which we do it. See, so she mentioned something about certain races. I forget which one she mentioned. It really doesn't matter. It's just the fact that she mentioned that there is another race or soul consciousness with spirit that, and I use Misha as an example of that I've mentioned this one time before, but I'll say it again. Imagine that because you experience eternal unconditional love in your heart, right? And so she saw something in your eyes, which is the souls. You know, the eyes are the windows to the souls. So the first time that she met me, our eyes locked like two children. Remember, back to the tree of creation with Adam and Eve, the boy and the girl holding hands. Look at what we created on the tree of life creation. It was a moment like that. If you've ever experienced as a little boy looking into the eyes of a girl, soul to soul, spirit to spirit, and it's like the blast furnace lit. The essences of two spirits that are now locked, soul to soul, spirit to spirit. And you just go, wow. And you immediately recognize how much fun we can have together to be spiritual partners. So she grabbed me and says, I want you to be a spiritual partner with me so that I can learn to get rid of those things that don't serve me. As a result,
of everything that's held captive in memory that is causing me to be triggered to do things that I know that get me in trouble as a result of all the trauma that she's been through, and of course her own bloodline history as negative, right? And so when she was able to heal over a period of a couple of weeks, simply because the energy that is in there that is represented by what love is healing her children and her. Because you know that when a girl's running 3 altars and one energy field is a shapeshifter, then her children are experiencing the instability of their own mother's energy. So you can see the impact that's going to have on their own central nervous system, because I'm observing, I'm experiencing both her children who, as a result of being subjected to that or experiencing her mother's energy operating on that level that way, what it has done to their central nervous system. So you begin to realize that if her children aren't going to heal, if her mother can heal, then her mother can now heal her children. They can heal each other together and balance out their energies, and thus burn off the miasma, what's been held in their cellular memories of all the trauma and the upsetness and the violence and the impression and the control. Everything that is represented by what we experience in a control system, a psychopath, right? And so over time, when she had moved from one place on the island of Oahu over to this island, I hadn't seen her for probably about 6 weeks, because I was living on this island when she was living on Oahu. And then I had surgery and I was staying at her house. And for that period of time, her family was beginning to heal in a very natural way, simply because the amount of energy that is there in vibration and frequency, their antennas are picking up on that. And they're letting go of those things that's causing them to feel so much anxiety and stress. And now they're experiencing a greater sense of peace, harmony, rhythm, and balance in their own template. Okay. And that was bringing enormous tears to her mother's eyes. And so she was beginning to go through the healing process. And you can observe this over time space vectors by her energy becoming more calm over the course of, say, every day, right? So you see that there's progress, right? And then I don't see her for about 6 weeks, because I came back to this island, and then she decided to come over here. And so when I had gone over to the place where she was at with a guy that she was with, that she married, even though she's got another boyfriend, so you understand how this works, with her 2 children, and I hadn't seen her for a while, and as soon as I drove up, she came running out of her house with her son and grabbed me by the knees and the legs and got down on her knees like she was just hugging my legs, my feet down on the ground, because of what it is the energy. Once somebody who has suffered an enormous amount of trauma at the level at which this girl had, she had been sexually and spiritually tortured from, as she described it, 2 or 3 years of age by one of her relatives, her uncle, as I remember it. And if you listen to this woman's story, and it's not like there aren't millions of other children that have similar or worse stories, because I'm very familiar with that, to have this girl who's 38 years of age to come down and almost like worship you at your feet, you have no idea how painful that was to experience that when you put it through the context of what Asha Diane was talking about, how somehow some other races are jealous, if you will, which was the word that she used to describe how they want to be able to experience what we experience, being what we are, if you will, as Christos, crystalline consciousness, which is the purity of your heart, which is the purity of your soul, which is the essence of your spirit, right? To be able to experience the one through your heart and your soul. You're experiencing being one with all creation that you're gifting love energy to, right? But they don't experience that. So when I experience that, to have this woman do something like that to me, it's not about worship. It's not about wanting to drop onto the floor, and have this girl at that age. It's actually, it is the greatest experience of humility to even acknowledge the eternal gift that we experience in our own heart. And it makes me cry so deeply for her because she doesn't experience what we do. And it's always there for her. So this is about restoration, bringing her back to eternity, so she can experience eternity within her own template. Okay, so when she's able to experience that in her template because of the template that we run, okay, you see the impact that it has on another being as a result of what happened to her. So you want to bring them back to the single point from which it all began, which is a crystal spiral. That's the truth of it. So here she's, for some reason, she's been on my mind a lot this last week because I haven't seen her for a while, and she wanted so much to have what it is we have, because she ended up getting arrested again in Wisconsin, I guess. She goes from boyfriend to boyfriend, boyfriend to boyfriend, boyfriend to boyfriend. It's like chasing the electrons, chasing the dream, and of what we're held captive to that doesn't serve us, and finding the healthiest spiritual ways in which to be able to restore ourselves, help her to restore what it is that she can restore in spirit and her soul, and bring herself back to experience within her own heart and soul of what love is naturally, not through technology, okay? But what she actually feels in spiritual energy within her own heart and soul with her spirit. Her spirit is the energy, and the energy that her spirit is experiencing is what love is. So we're talking about a spiritual restoration, a spiritual awakening to experience the one. That's what it is. Have a great day. I'm going to go out and work on the rock and start pushing as much love as I can. This is the largest shield volcano, right? Yeah. High-speed tetrahedrons. We love you all. Be good to yourselves.